Since most of our researchers do their work in these domains, partly for their promotion in the academic scale, I wish to just make a few proposals likely to improve our current work. First, for works intended for publication, our researchers and students need to keep this in mind. 1. Journals are interested in innovative materials that might be unique and well argued for. The reason I make this observation is that oftentimes I read material from our junior researchers who seek promotion. I have the impression that in their quest for promotion, they hurriedly write their papers and simply rephrase what other people have simply said. 2. For PhD dissertation writers, they need to be reminded that a dissertation is a piece of work that argues for a position that is unique to the author. He must have presumably identified a problem for which a solution is to be found. To find that solution, he will have investigated what has been said about the problem through a literature review, and then demonstrate how this solution is the right one. In a PhD dissertation, the following verbs have to be kept in the mind. Argue, that is, you simply don't state something, you have to argue for it, showing why the alternative solutions wouldn't work and that yours is the best one. Another verb, demonstrate. Again, you don't simply state things and think that your readers will believe you on the basis of what you've said. Sometimes you need several examples, not only just one example that might be deceptive, as the reader needs to know whether a pattern that you're proposing is productive or not. 3. The following remark, often given by my colleague, Professor Tamanji, is in order here for the dissertation writers and also for young researchers who need to see their paper published. They have to write a good abstract that tells the reader what the paper or the dissertation is about. Normally, and I'm quoting Professor Tamanji, an abstract consists of 4 elements. 1, the research question. 2, the data, their source, and the methodology used to collect the data. 3, the theoretical framework for analyzing the data. 4, the result in relation to the research questions. Now, another pitfall that students often face is the following, as observed by Professor Tamanji as he gave remarks to a PhD candidate during his oral defense. Generally, you pose a problem, then you say what other people have said, then you introduce the data on Bassa. You then conclude that you will revise the analysis given previously. Two, Professor Tamanji and Mutaka, as the president of the jury, fully agreed with him. The procedure for introducing data and their analysis should rather be the following. A, you should present the relevant data on Bassa, for example. B, you tell the reader how you intend to solve the problem using the data. C, you then say how other researchers have tackled such a problem, and you presumably show how your solution is better than any previous account of the problem. As for the proposal from our Western partners, I wish to clearly state what Professor Larry Hyman said, and that we must bear in mind as we read about these proposals. He said that he could not make any proposal because this might again sound patronizing. He recognized that much of the work done in the African continent is for the promotion of the kind of linguistics devised by Western scholars. Because my question in asking him his proposal was that if he were to put himself in our shoes, and if he has to look at the needs to do linguistics that would benefit our own people, he said that if we really want to change certain things, we as African scholars have to devise those means. He nonetheless attracted my attention on work that is being done in the African continent and that is new. I will give it here and make a few comments how this should be turned to our advantage. Now you can see his proposals on page 5 and the very beginning of page 6 on the handout. So I will just skip it. Now from another scholar, Jeff Gould of the University of New York at Buffalo, sociolinguistics had started in Africa, what would it look like? What are the topics of research interest that would be promoted? I believe this is a real challenge, as most of us have been molded in Western schools. Most scholars seek promotion in trying to direct their research on what Western scholars will judge acceptable. Yet, what is really attractive is what is new and challenging. How come we always want our Western colleagues, through their students, to come and investigate things that we could have found ourselves? Two cases in point. Italian girls who came to research circumcision rights among the Konzo, my people in Uganda. This is a taboo topic on which we have no knowledge. The second case is an Italian doctoral student who came to live with the Baka Pygmies in Cameroon in order to study their ways of living. Part of the requirements was to stay completely naked in the forest. He did that. I doubt that most of us would do, this kind of thing. Unfortunately, the Pygmies learned that, revealed some of their secrets, and they were furious. This poses ethical problems, but shouldn't we find ways to reconcile such ethical problems and what we can find at our level? Now, another idea of Jeff Good: what is the ideology of the African scholars concerning changes in the society? Of course, the question is, do we have an ideology, particularly in the domain of multilingualism, even though nearly all of us are multilingual speakers? Do we ever ask such questions and try to find solutions while there are changes in our societies? I think that I will give certain answers through the talk, but that you can read in the paper. I believe what we may retain from these proposals is the importance of pursuing research on aspects of our languages not yet thoroughly investigated. For such languages, it would always be interesting to propose a lexicon or a dictionary. Most importantly, from a more African perspective, I propose that research be also concentrated on the semantics of certain lexical items likely to unravel the cultural specificities of the speakers of such languages. I wish to mention in passing the work of Koen Bostrom, 2004-2005, who in the past focused on the semantics of lexical items related to pottery in the Great Lakes. I have now noticed that other researchers are doing similar work on other items. See, for example, IJ 2013, several studies in Newman 2009. Studies on herbal medicine could thus be fully integrated in linguistic studies under this perspective of a comparative study of lexical items in African languages. I also wish to draw your attention on some of the key questions from Eckhart Wolff 2011 keynote address to the 27th West African Languages Congress on a similar topic as this one. Okay, I merely pasted what he said on this page that you can find on the handout on page 7 and the beginning of page 8. Now, the third section of the paper, proposals for a development-oriented type of research from an African cultural perspective. Before giving my proposals, a preliminary caution is in order here. Since most researchers are aware of the outlets in which they can publish their papers and the requirements for a good paper such outlets are likely to accept, I wish to state here that my proposals are for work that is primarily destined to hasten our development. This may be different from the academic good work which may contain a lot of theory, but which is useless or almost impossible to exploit if one wants to use it for development purposes. One outlet in which I envision the kinds of works aiming at our development is a doctoral, of which I am an active member. Professor Beban Sami and I recently submitted a proposal for the creation of a journal that could be publishing the type of work I will now propose. Language courses with the following emphasis. The course could start with a grammar sketch of the language, just the kind of information a learner would need to know how a language functions. This would be followed by a number of chapters organized around central topics of current life, more or less the kind of language course of Italian, English, and so on. Some of the material should be oral so that it can be converted into digital format. It should be accompanied by a key in paper form so that the learner has time to examine audio material he listened to and be encouraged to check the answers in such a document. The idea here is that the reader should not be completely disconnected with the written documents. However, oral skills are the ones that must be favored. Entertainment material that is exclusively African, for example, traditional storytelling, chant fable, that is, the kind of material one might like listening to, and that may remind us about traditional Africa. Again, this material should be preferably in the African native languages, as they aim to entice young people to really like listening to their native languages. My dream is to have tales interspersed with songs as I know when I was a child. These kinds of tales were so appealing. I'm almost certain that they would remain highly attractive for language learners with the nostalgia of listening to traditional songs that convey their traditional cultures. Another proposal, audio material containing dramatization of African events for the learning of English, French, and other foreign languages. The point is that the material for learning English does not have to always promote the Western foreign values. This type of material can be written in the foreign languages of wider communication. The advantage is that it would serve as educational material for learning English, French, Spanish, but with African cultural material. Another proposal, innovative material that would help us learn from experiences in Asia, China, India, Japan, and that are closely similar to ours. When you read traditional Japanese tales, you realize how the Japanese value hard work, perseverance, respect of the hierarchy. These are values that we do have as Africans. However, because our cultures have almost been ridiculed by the colonialists or the important religious ideologies, most of us have been convinced that our cultural practices are heathenism. I believe the young generation should be able to sift our traditional cultures and rewrite our stories, creating epics, for example, that would give a central role to the kinds of people we wish our heroes to embody. Recall that culture is not static. It also changes given the socioeconomic context of its populations. There are so many traditional values that can be brought into modern characters embodying the kinds of values we now admire. If you're able to admire them in Chinese or Japanese stories, why not create African characters that embody such values as well? Another proposal, music and dance. Apart from the modern type of music and dance as we know them, there's